All right, moving on to our next running back prospect, Devon Achane, running back, Texas A&M, 5'8", 188 pounds.
And a half.
Only 8.5-inch hands, Rich. Ran a 4.32 in the 40. He had a 1.51 10-yard split, which is really good. Tops that might be second or third in the class. And a 33-inch vertical. Last year, he had 196 carries for 1,102 yards, 8 touchdowns, 36 receptions, 196 yards, and another 3 touchdowns.
Missed 2 games with a foot injury.
He sure did.
Yeah, Achane is somebody that Jared and I have been talking about for quite a while. I remember, like, after his freshman year, texting him and being like, hey, I kind of like this Achane kid. Like, I know he's not, like, your traditional back, but this guy's, like, got legitimate wheels. And now we found out, like, literally time-wise, we're talking Olympic-level speed in the 200.
Olympic-level speed.
So we're not just saying track speed. We're saying Olympic-level
You know, in high school, he had, in the 200-meter outdoor, the fastest in the nation at 20.46.
Did he?
Yeah, fastest in the nation as a junior in high school.
So, I mean, the kid is just a phenomenal athlete. And he was getting plenty of time right away as a freshman, which you love seeing that. You love seeing guys that get on the field, even with, and I get it, that Spiller has disappointed so far at the NFL level, but a guy that was drafted, early round 4, that he got on the field with him right away. There's a lot of things in his game that are better than you would expect for someone of his size. First of all, I think he actually has really good vision. You never know how, like, these smaller size scat back looking players are going to do between the tackles, but his vision was plus for me. Good patience as well. Very, very elusive. So it's not just the top speed, but he has the elusiveness to go with it. I didn't have the highest marks. I had him breaking tackles decently, but not necessarily the highest contact balance in the class. There's really not a lot of physicality and power there.
Right.
Enough to get by, but that's not at all a strong suit of his. Struggles a little bit in the pass pro, but I think excels enough. They didn't throw the ball to him as much as I thought they would, but when he does it, looks natural, looks fine. I don't have any worries there. So Achane overall is a good prospect. I gave him a 74.08, which is a good score for me. That's in a similar range to guys that we've seen be on the cusp of the top 10 overall in the past 3 seasons. So very good player. Really like him.
You had Najee at like 74.
There we go. I was trying to think of a good comp of where I had him. So
yeah, it's ETN. You had 74.
Perfect. Yeah, right around the same spot as ETN.
Yeah, this is running back when you hear his size, 5'8.5", 180 pounds. Just look at those numbers. It's a deterrent for you. But this guy breaks the mold for me. I came away very impressed. And I know Matt said that he only had 8.5-inch hands, which could be worrisome. He only had 2 fumbles in 3 years.
I just wanted to put that in there.
He only had 2 fumbles in 3 years. And when you watch him play, again, his size, his biggest con is going to be his size, right? But when you
100%.
watch him play, he's not afraid to run between the tackles.
That's
Like
like
he's
his only
fearless in there. And even despite his size, he still averaged 4.5 yards per carry between the tackles. I saw a really good stat from my homie, Rich Rebar, who works for Warren Sharp and Sharp Analysis. Rich Rebar said, when Achane was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage, he averaged 4.5 yards after contact per attempt and turned 24.7% of those carries into first downs or touchdowns. Both of those rates were amongst the highest of this entire draft class. So even when he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, he was still producing at a high level for his team. Everything about his game is something is very exciting. Garrett named all of those. Ran pretty good routes. He actually played some slot sometimes as well. You saw him out there. I thought he tracked the ball well. Good with the ball in his hands, like you mentioned. I mentioned only 2 fumbles in 3 years. And he is small. I mean, it's a reason, that were like 66% of his runs were to the outside. And he actually averaged 6.2 yards per carry when he got to the outside. So
and he's got plenty of speed to get out there. I mean, plenty of speed.
And sometimes that was a detriment because sometimes he would look to get to the outside when there'd be a hole into the middle. And I could live with that and I'd be coached up. And another kind I would have for him, since he is a little bit smaller, it was harder for him. Like when he had to extend for the passes, he had a little bit more of a difficult time because he's smaller.
There's not as much there to extend with those 8.5-inch fingers.
But for me,
Hands, fingers. That'd be a long.
Those are long fingers, man.
I think size is
Dang.
important for a running back. So when I look at his size, like I'm immediately going, all right, here's a cut prospect. Even though I like his tape, it's not going to work.
So that's
he breaks the mold for me.
That's my main question. You know what I mean? I love all the stuff he does. He's got crazy lateral agility. And he has, like you said, great vision. I think he follows his blocks well, but when things are not going well,
He recognizes and diagnoses
it, and he's got the agility and burst to go the other way and make something out of nothing. So I think there's a lot there to like. And even between the tackles, the question I have is, at 188 pounds, what kind of role is he going to have in the NFL that lets him do what he was doing in college? Because I think if he lands a similar role in the NFL and a coach that trusts him,
can do well.
He'll do well, and he could be special in the NFL for fantasy purposes. If not, I'm just not sure. Like, are we stuck with a Kenneth Gainwell type of thing where he's going to tease you and he's going to look good at times, but they're always going to be having another running back there with him, kind of sharing time? That's what I'm worried about with Devon Achane. It's not talent at all. It's what kind of role is he?
I think they have a similar skill set, with the exception of Kenneth Gainwell had good speed. He has elite speed.
He absolutely does.
And I think that's the big differentiator.
That's a tier break too.
Yep.
Because you give him the outside. If you give him the outside, you threw a little screen to him, he has a chance to take it to the house. Like Garrett said, Olympic type speed. And people are going to knock him too. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is 5'9". He's 9 pounds heavier than him. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're talking a half-inch difference here between Devon Achane. So I'm really excited. So I currently have him right now as my running back 4. And I flip-flop, right? Like I had him as my running back 3 behind Gibbs. And then I already started diving into some Zach Charbonnet a little bit deeper. And I think Zach Charbonnet's upside is higher than Devon Achane's. So I would
safer too.
He's safer. So I'd put him ahead of Devon Achane. I'm really excited to see where he gets drafted and what kind of draft capital he gets invested in. I think he's a day 2 guy for sure. I want to see where he lands and where he could fit into what mold he could fit into, because that's going to, we were all surprised when James Cook went in the second round to the Buffalo Bills. Can Devon Achane fulfill that for us? But on a positive, when James Cook went in the second round, I was like, oh wow, that's a little surprising. If Devon Achane goes in the second round, I'm like, all right, now there's an argument here for him to be running back 3 overall, running 4. So I'm really excited to see where the draft kind of breaks some of these tier breaks for me, because I have a lot of guys that are in like kind of same mold for me. Outside of Bijan, then you got Gibbs. I mean, argue Gibbs is kind of. I think Gibbs and Charbonnet could kind of be in the same tier as well. And like
definitely possible.
And like Achane's like there, right? Like the door's open. He's been invited in. It just he hasn't walked through the door yet, and the draft can do that.
And to your point, Garrett, I went back and looked in Kenneth Gainwell's combine stuff. 5'11", so he was
a little bit lankier,
a little bit taller, and 195 pounds, so he had a little bit more meat to him. But 4.42, so that's a big difference. 4.32, 4.42. That's, I mean, as far as speed on the field, that's a huge difference.
And the 3 inches in running back's case, lower is somewhat better because you have a better BMI, so he's more compact, a little bit better to take some of those hits and that kind of stuff.
Unless you get down into a certain range that we'll talk about.
Well, you do have that. You know who he kind of reminds me of? Like if let's say this player was a 75 out of 100 being the best running back ever. He's a 75 out of 100, Michael Carter. Then put Achane at like a 90. Similar attributes, just better. Better at all of it.
I agree. And I liked Michael Carter more than Kenneth Gainwell, so maybe Kenneth Gainwell isn't the best comp.
I liked Kenny G more.
You like Kenny Gainwell more. I like Michael Carter more
too.
And I do think he's better than both of them. How about that? So
I think significantly.
Yeah. So I the only question I have is size. We'll see if he lands a better role than a guy like Kenny Gainwell or not. All right. So I
Jared,
guess. Go ahead.
I think Achane has a chance to be special if size doesn't end up being a factor. 'Cause
Right.
that's really the only con I can find in his game. And I watched the most tape on Achane out of all these running backs because my grade ended up being so high for him. So I kept trying to find why is his grade he's just so good to me. But physicality weighs in heavily in our grading system, and I graded him a 4 in physicality, and he still ended up being. I mean, he's a 76 for me right now, which is
A 4 in physicality? See, I would.
yeah.
I mean, I don't do the score, but I mean,
so for our grading scale, that's average college running back level.
okay.
That's what a 4 is.
He just doesn't. He doesn't have a move the pile type of power. He just doesn't have the girth.
I think he
behind
takes
it.
contact
I
well.
think he
He's
does.
actually more
Yeah.
he's able to absorb contact. I thought his contact balance was a little better than what Garrett stated earlier. And
I thought it was pretty good too. I mean, he handles in between the tackles for his size extremely well. He gets lost in there because of his size, but his vision inside that in between the tackles and his contact balance, and like I said, his physicality. In my, I mean, maybe I just word it differently than you guys. I would call power and physicality two different things. So I think he actually is a pretty physical back. I enjoyed watching him between the tackles because, and the reason I enjoyed it so much was because of his size. That's where I was looking for the biggest failure. Because Jared said, I liked him so much watching his tape. I was like, okay, let me bang him here because of his size in between the tackles. And he consistently surprised me. And he consistently found ways to break out of that. He disappeared and then he comes through, and it wouldn't be for big gains, but it'd be positive gains.
Right.
And it's not just that he can make people miss, juking him out. I thought he had a really good stiff arm.
He does.
Too.
That's
one of the
absolutely
better
true.
ones I've seen in this class. So there's a lot of nuance in his game.
Now he's back to running back 3 for me.
It's he's RB3 for me.
He's
right
RB3
now,
for him
and
as
he's
well.
Closer to Gibbs than Gibbs is to Bijan. I
think-
would almost put them in the same tier.
You're going to hear Gibbs a lot as the consistent running back 2. He's current my running back 2. But Achane and Charbonnet are not behind him far whatsoever. They're
agree.
there. I feel
I agree with that.
there's no need to trade up number 2 when you could easily get one of these guys after them. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigbud's probably going to go ahead of these guys. And then the receivers, Quentin Johnson's a nice prospect as well. But then you're talking running back here.